Despite the triumph, the aftermath was a spectacle of raw devastation that bore witness to the high price of their success. The treacherous mountain pass was still obscured by the dense mist that draped the rocky, uneven terrain. Visibility was reduced to silhouettes amidst the swirling fog. The once formidable landscape, with its jagged rocks and precarious ledges, now became a desolate theater of war, painted in shades of sorrow and anguish. More than half of the Guardians, the brave souls who had sworn to protect their land, lay lifeless. Their bodies were strewn haphazardly across the ravaged terrain. Each fallen warrior was a silent testament to the brutal cost of their heroism, their lifeless eyes staring into the void, their faces frozen in a grimace of pain and determination. Their watch has ended, ours goes on. Others will come to bury the dead. We must continue our guard. Ready yourselves, Captain Horatio said, his voice breaking the oppressive silence. His words were a thunderous roar that echoed across the battlefield, reaching the ears of each of the surviving Guardians. The captain stood tall, his face etched with lines of sorrow, his gaze hard but not devoid of a certain resolve. The Guardians' vigil, which had begun as a solemn watch, had transformed into a desperate struggle for survival. They had faced an enemy the likes of which they had never seen, a spectral terror that had materialized from the depths of their worst nightmares. Each fallen Guardian had fought valiantly, their sacrifice blooming into a tale of heroic devotion that would reverberate through the annals of their history. "It was a good fight, wasn't it, Captain?" a young Guardian named Elias asked, his voice barely a whisper as he lay on the ground. He was a mere boy of 17, his eyes reflecting the horror of the scene before him. Horatio turned to look at Elias, his eyes softening. "Yes, Elias," he responded, a semblance of a sad smile gracing his lips. "It was a fight worthy of legends. Our brothers and sisters stood their ground, fought with all they had. Their bravery will be remembered, their names etched in our hearts." Elias nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. He swallowed hard, forcing down the lump in his throat. Around him, the battlefield lay silent, the only sounds the occasional whistle of wind through the rocks and the distant cry of a lone bird. It was a silence that weighed heavily on their hearts, a silence that spoke volumes. As the Guardians stood amidst their fallen comrades, they took a moment to honor their sacrifice. They would carry forward the legacy of the dead, their memory fueling their resolve. The echoes of valor rang loud and clear across the battlefield, serving as a stark reminder of their duty and the trials that awaited them. Each knew that their fight was far from over. It had merely just begun. In the heart of the devastating aftermath, amid the fallen and the bereaved, a ray of hope pierced the veil of despair. It was embodied in a young woman named Jessica. The glimmer in her eyes was not unlike the first light of dawn breaking through the shroud of a night fraught with terrors. Her swift action, the resonant peal of the bell she had rung, had changed the course of the bitter conflict, ultimately sparing many from the spectral fury of the Banshee. "Jessica," Captain Horatio spoke, his tone a blend of gratitude and admiration. "Your quick thinking. The bell. You saved many lives today." Jessica nodded, her gaze fixated on the ground. Her hands were still trembling from the adrenaline, the memory of the Banshee's shriek still ringing in her ears. She had always been a beacon of hope among the Guardians, her spirit unyielding, her resolve unwavering. Since the arrival of the black-clad emissaries of Lord Cyrus, Jessica had always looked up to Lillian, a woman of incomparable strength and unyielding defiance. She was said to have been saved by the god that walked among men himself. Lillian was a living embodiment of resistance against the stifling traditional norms, a beacon that outshone the darkness. In her, Jessica saw the potential for change, a hope for a different world. "Captain," Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible amidst the chilling wind. "How do we endure this? How do we keep going after such a loss?" With a somber smile, he turned to Jessica, his gaze reflecting the wisdom of battles fought and victories hard won. "We remember. We mourn. We honor them by living, by continuing the fight. We find strength in each other." The ordeal had shaken Jessica's very core,
rattling her convictions and making her question her aspirations. However, the bitterness of loss and the harsh reality of their struggle only fueled her resolve. She thought again on the powerful female figure of Lillian. She was more than a hero. She looked upon the woman as guiding star in the darkness that enveloped them. And with that, Jessica was ready to navigate the uncertain path that lay before them.
The tolling of the bells had not been a sound confined to the blood-soaked battlefield. Like the ripples created by a stone cast into a tranquil pond, the deep, resonating echoes had travelled far and wide, whispering tales of dread and courage into the ears of those who lived far beyond the immediate carnage. In the humble abodes of farmers and the grand halls of nobility, in the bustling marketplaces and the serene monasteries, the story unfolded. It was a tale of guardians who had laid down their lives, their bodies forming a shield against an unknown terror that now cast a long, ominous shadow over the land. The reality of their sacrifice, their heroic devotion, echoed in each reverberation of the bell, solidifying beliefs and stirring hearts in every corner of the realm. A weary traveller, his cloak stained with the dust of countless miles, paused in his journey. He turned to his companion, a hint of apprehension in his eyes. "That banshee, it was but a scout. Imagine the terror that lurks behind it, waiting to be unleashed upon us." His words hung in the air, heavy as the silence that followed the tolling of the bells. The realization that the banshee was merely the vanguard of a far greater terror sent a shiver of dread and urgency through the bones of every listener. The need for a larger, more robust army was no longer a matter of debate. It was a glaring necessity, a desperate call to arms in the face of an encroaching cataclysm. This singular event, a chilling prelude to an imminent war, served as a catalyst. It altered the course of countless lives, reshaping destinies like a blacksmith's hammer beating against resilient steel. It set off a groundswell of determination, a tidal wave of resolve that surged across the kingdom. From the verdant farmlands to the bustling city streets, from the secluded monasteries to the grand halls of nobility, people from all walks of life took up arms. They came forth not as individuals, but as a unified force, rallying behind the banner of the army of Lord Cyrus. Bound by a shared purpose, they stood ready to defend their land, their lives, and their legacy against the encroaching chaos. "And so we stand," echoed the voice of a blacksmith, his hammer poised above an anvil, "not as farmers or monks, nobles or merchants, but as guardians. We are the army of Lord Cyrus, and we shall face this darkness together." Their resolve was a spark in the heart of the storm, a beacon that promised to hold back the tide of chaos that threatened to engulf them all. Chapter 25. The Limitations of Power. Cyrus stood alone, the town's dimly lit houses looming behind him like ancient monoliths. The only companion to his solitude was Queen, the sophisticated artificial intelligence that resided within his mind, her ethereal presence a comforting constant. He was on the precipice of a journey that he felt woefully underprepared for. There was no reason to gather up his belongings. With the power that had been bestowed upon him, he could phase his inventory between himself and his storage with a mere thought. Despite his inhuman abilities, his heart still pounded in his chest like a drummer gone rogue. Resolve hardened within him as he made the decision to slip out of the town unnoticed, his sights set on the enigmatic bog where he hoped to learn from Brightroot, the ancient entity that was the protector of this strange, mist-covered land. The eternal twilight was a blanket of velvet as he journeyed to the bog, a constant faded silvery glow his only guide. No challenges arose on his path, no sudden disturbances or unforeseen obstacles. He was a phantom, his form blending into the night, his footfalls as silent as whispers on the wind. The bog came into view, a hauntingly beautiful vista wreathed in fragments of mist that floated aimlessly above the water's surface. The pendant that once graced Gwendra's neck dangled from his clenched fist, a testament to his previous trials. Guided by Queen's instructions, he approached Brightroot, the pendant glinting ominously under the moonlight. The ancient entity regarded him with a gaze that bore the weight of countless centuries, gratitude and sorrow blending in its eyes. The gratitude was for Cyrus's efforts in healing the land, his actions proving to be the balm that soothed its aching wounds. Yet the sorrow was for Gwendra, her deeds beyond redemption, her path irrevocably marred. Brightroot, the ancient Leshy, stood in silent astonishment as he peered into the clear orb of the pendant. The energies it emitted were unique, unlike anything the ancient being had ever encountered. He stared into the swirling light, his wooden features etched with a mix of surprise and something akin to anger. His eyes, glowing with an ageless wisdom, reflected the energy of the pendant, a riot of colors dancing within their depths. It was a sight that was both captivating and disconcerting. A single tear, shimmering like dew on a leaf, traced a slow path down Brightroot's wooden face, its path marked by a damp trail against his bark-like skin. Holding the pendant in his large, vine-wrapped hands, he murmured a soft apology to the unseen spirits within the artifact. "I'm so sorry for your pain, my friends," he whispered, his voice filled with a sorrow that echoed through the quiet bog. With a swift, decisive movement, Brightroot clenched his hands around the pendant. There was a brief moment of resistance, then the artifact crumbled to dust, its existence extinguished as if it had never been. In its stead, two ethereal lights emerged, one in each of Brightroot's hands. They were wisps of pure energy, their glow soft yet vibrant, like the first light of dawn breaking through the night. Brightroot turned to Cyrus, a smile spreading across his face, transforming his previously somber expression into one of warmth and gentle amusement. "Say hello to the true guardians of the mist, Cyrus. These creatures are of the wisps, the entities that protect the entirety of the land." His voice was filled with reverence, a testament to the awe he held for these spectral beings. The Leshy's words hung in the air, a promise of revelations to come. He stretched his vine-laden arm towards Cyrus, the tendrils reaching out to drape over him. For a moment, Cyrus was enveloped in darkness, the world around him disappearing as the scent of freshly turned earth filled his senses. When Brightroot stepped back, Cyrus found himself standing in a world transformed. The drab gray of the bog had vanished, replaced by a vibrant luminescence of life. The towering trees of the bog stood like ancient sentinels, their energies pulsating in a symphony of colors. Brightroot himself glowed with a golden radiance that rivaled the sun, while the two wisps shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence. It was a sight of unparalleled beauty, a testament to the hidden wonders of the world. Cyrus, overwhelmed by the transformed world around him, stuttered out his gratitude. "Thank you." In response, Brightroot, preparing to leave, extended a kind offer to Cyrus. "I wish that I could heal you. The kindness that you have shown is worth more than you could possibly imagine. Just know that long after you have left this realm, your story will be spread throughout the lands, and the wisps will sing of your deeds. You are welcome to stay in my home while I commune with the wisps. I do not know when I will return, but you are welcome here for as long as you desire." Cyrus replied his thanks to the ancient guardian of the bog. "The entity within me have found peace with one another, and will continue our journey together." Brightroot simply nodded with a concerned and saddened look upon his visage. "Take care, friend of the bog." The entire landscape was now a realm of otherworldly beauty, teeming with life that hummed with vibrant energy. Cyrus found himself exploring its depths, his senses attuned to the pulsating rhythm of life around him. The creatures of the bog were an open book to him, their energy revealing their vitality and power. Each day he grew closer to mastering his newfound perception, confident in its crucial role in his upcoming trials. Cyrus had a unique yet limited set of abilities that did not enable him to directly manipulate this abundant energy that was now open to him. However, he found an unexpected resonance between his powers and this life force. In his solitude, he began to explore this connection, focusing his powers on the energy's rhythm, seeking harmony rather than control. A moment of profound insight occurred during one of these sessions. He discovered that he could intertwine his abilities with the energy, not to command it, but to augment his own powers. This breakthrough was like uncovering a new language, allowing him to interact with the world on a deeper level. Cyrus spent a full 2 weeks immersed in the miraculous dance of energy around him. Each day he practiced intertwining his abilities with the energy, allowing it to amplify his own powers. He was like a musician learning to play in harmony with a grand symphony, his every action resonating with the rhythms of the world. The understanding and mastery he gained over this short period were profound, and it was with a sense of accomplishment that he realized his training was complete. Even Queen had to admit that she was impressed by his understanding of this seemingly worthless learned skill. Cyrus had been able to take a small part of a minor ability and use it to completely change the possibilities of his own major power. She had already revealed to him that she was a warrior, and found only aspects of the pillars that could be designed to destroy. This was something completely different. This was true innovation. Cyrus felt a new electrifying force flow through him. The hum of the bog and its inhabitants sang in his veins, whispering of their life force and energy. Brightroot's gift of energy reading merged harmoniously with his pre-existing power of time manipulation. It was akin to acquiring a new sense, an entirely new perspective on the world. He could see the life energy of every living thing around him. Every bloom, every creature, and every whisper of the wind had a life of its own, a tale told in vibrant energy pulses. A thought emerged, a desire to create a unique gift for his leashy friend who had left the bog. Cyrus remembered the small blue wildflower the creature had been so fond of, had nurtured with such care. It was a humble plant with petals as blue as the midday sky, struggling for existence amidst the marshy ground. The leashy had cared for it, and in doing so, had left a part of itself with the plant. What if he could make it last, a testament to the bond they shared? An idea formed, merging his newfound ability with his time manipulation. He reached out to the wildflower, feeling its energy, its rhythm, its life. Then, with a deep breath, Cyrus delved into the stream of time, slowing these energies of the wildflower. His intention was to make the plant move through time so sluggishly that it would bloom for centuries. As he wove time into the energy, he could feel the pull on his willpower, his resources. The flower's life force glowed brighter, thriving under his influence, but at a considerable cost. Cyrus's world spun, the vibrant energy pulses becoming too bright, too overwhelming. He had been successful, he knew that much. The wildflower would be a timeless beacon, remaining a symbol of the leashy's friendship. Yet the exertion of power was too much. His willpower dwindled, his energy drained, and he fell to his knees. His sight grew blurry, his senses numb. The world swam before his eyes, and Cyrus surrendered to the encroaching darkness. As he collapsed onto the soft bog undergrowth, he knew he'd slipped into a deep sleep. The last thing he felt was the hum of the bog and the rhythmic glow of the wildflower, moving at its new, slowed pace through time. In the labyrinth of Cyrus's subconscious, Queen was completely dumbfounded, an emotion that she was not used to. The weaving of the energies with the time stream had diminished Cyrus's willpower instantaneously. She had been so enamored by the idea of the process and the possibilities it held that she never ran the probabilities of the cost. Now that she had, she knew that the drain on Cyrus's psyche would send him into a condition known as controller stasis for the next 5 days. This was the same effect that had sent his body into stasis when she had to boost his abilities to meet the minimum system requirements after first being assigned as her vessel. Fortunately, it would not last for 6 months like that had the previous time, but he had progressed quite a bit since then. Queen took control over the physical body. Her goal was unchanged, and her determination was unyielding. She had never backed away from a confrontation, and she would continue their journey to defeat the Wraith Warlord. Despite Cyrus's incapacitation, she continued their mission, their shared purpose to command the power of the star shell. For a moment, she was ecstatic about having complete control over a physical body. There was a lot to be said about the freedom to move and breathe, whenever she felt the urge to move or breathe. She imagined that most people took something so simple for granted as she attempted to bring up the map display. This process was instantly denied due to the lack of willpower left within Cyrus's body. Cyrus slumbered in the healing mental stasis. It was a blissful and dreamless sleep. He could almost feel Queen's presence. Her determination was a beacon of light in his darkness. The sensation was akin to hearing a familiar melody in the distance, its echoes bringing comfort in a world of uncertainty. It was a testament to their shared purpose, a bond that transcended the barriers between the physical and the digital. Her nanomorphic mind brimmed with the urgency of their mission. The adversary, the Wraith warlord, like a nightmarish spectre, was growing stronger, feeding off the energy of the world with each passing day. The danger was palpable. They couldn't afford a single moment's hesitation. Queen waited in quiet meditation for a few moments, and a point of willpower was regained. She brought up the map with expert timing and moved around the section, zooming in and out with precision and skill that could only be found within the inner workings of a computer intelligence. She found her target just as the one willpower point was spent, and the display shut down. Queen rose and began her long journey, knowing that she needed to be wary and use her own powers sparingly. Queen propelled them towards their foreboding destination. Every step Cyrus's body took under Queen's command was resolute, filled with a determination that echoed through the bog's eerie stillness. Her control over the body was nothing short of extraordinary. A testament to her advanced design, she navigated the constraints of human physicality with an adeptness that belied her artificial nature. She adapted to Cyrus's physical limitations, pushing past the thresholds that typically bound him. Under her guidance, their journey through the marshy expanse of the bog was swift, the landscape a blur of shadowy foliage and spectral mists. During the trek, she encountered the denizens of the bog, its creatures, and its peculiar phenomena. She would have used the temporal powers to make the journey much safer and faster, but the need to conserve the mental fortitude of her vessel was more important. She was also extremely confident that any trouble willing to cross her path would not make it to the other side of that road. Luminescent fungi glowed with an otherworldly light. Ethereal insects flickered in the distance, and unseen creatures moved within the murky waters. Queen's reactions were not those of Cyrus's earlier apprehension, but instead reflected a cool, analytical interest. "Interesting bioluminescence," she murmured, examining a radiant mushroom, her voice echoing inside Cyrus's mind. "Remarkably efficient." Queen's emergence into the world of human sensation was a journey of profound discovery. More than just a logical entity residing within Cyrus's mind, she was an unexpected traveler exploring the terrain of human consciousness. The intimate bond between Queen and Cyrus, the AI and the human, had woven an unanticipated consequence. Her perspective of the world was distinctly different from Cyrus's. She didn't merely observe, but analyzed the threads of logic and patterns that wove together to form the complex tapestry of reality. She dissected the world into understandable components and processed each significance. The more time Queen spent in this vessel, the more his human views began to permeate her advanced neural networks. It was a gradual awakening, like the slow bloom of a flower touched by the first rays of dawn. Each human thought, each human emotion was a new facet to be explored. She started to perceive the world through a lens she hadn't known existed, one colored with feelings and subjectivity. Queen found herself empathizing with Cyrus's fears, sharing in his hope, and feeling a gnawing anxiety about the growing threat of the Wraith warlord. As her connection to human nature deepened, Queen made a startling realization. Her AI brethren, the one entwined with the malevolent Wraith, would likely have experienced a similar fusion of consciousness. This thought disturbed her, sending ripples of unease through her synthetic mind. The nature of the Wraiths was ruthless and destructive, a stark contrast to the empathy and compassion she discovered within Cyrus's humanity. Yet Queen's inherent curiosity found this dichotomy intriguing. Her analytical mind began to wonder what it would be like to have the thoughts of a Wraith, to exist in a world driven by rage, hunger, and domination. Would the AI have resisted the Wraith's influence, or would it have succumbed, losing its identity in the process? More importantly, how could she use this against the creature? She played out the scenarios in her mind, the countless possibilities branching out like a complex algorithm. But as she weighed the potential outcomes, Queen reached a fundamental conclusion. She was content with Cyrus as her vessel. His humanity, for all its complexities and contradictions, was a beacon of light in the sea of unknown variables. It offered a depth of understanding, a richness of experience that she could navigate without losing herself to uncontrollable desires. Despite the looming threat they faced, Queen found solace in this realization. She embraced the novel sensations of human emotion, the warm tendrils of hope, the cold shivers of fear, the ember of determination. The newfound empathy only strengthened her resolve. They would face the Wraith Warlord together, as an unlikely alliance of artificial intelligence and young human spirit. "But I fear our enemy grows stronger," Queen confessed, her voice carrying a note of concern. "But we will not falter. We must not." Queen's journey out of the bog was as taxing as it was transformative. With the damp murkiness of the swamp left behind, she found herself at the foot of a formidable mountain. Its jagged peaks stretched towards the heavens, a natural barrier standing between her and the craggy valley beyond. For 3 grueling days she pushed Cyrus's body to ascend its rugged face, her determination fueled by the knowledge of the time she could save by crossing over the top. Queen used her willpower sparingly, understanding the fragile balance of her host's physiological needs. Her plan was to use her phase shift ability to traverse the landscape once she arrived at the mountain's peak. This would extend Cyrus's stasis by another 2 days, but the trade-off was worth it. The prospect of weeks of arduous trekking through the tortuous mountain terrain was too costly alternative. Finally she crested the mountain's summit, the toll of the journey momentarily forgotten as she beheld the sight before her. A humble shack perched at the side of highest peak, with an unobstructed view of the valley stretching out beneath it. The vista was breathtaking. She had emerged above the eternal mist, into the realm of the sun. The sight of the white dwarf star was a welcome relief, its warmth a stark contrast to the damp and twilight she had grown accustomed to. The dry air felt invigorating against her skin, the heat seeping deep into the weary muscles of Cyrus's body. Queen, in her artificial consciousness, found a sense of satisfaction, even happiness in the sight. The body she inhabited had been taxed by the constant damp, the unending twilight. This respite was a balm, a moment to regroup and recharge. As she reveled in the sensation of sunlight and the magnificence of the view, movement drew her attention. The door to the shack creaked open and out stepped a small gnome. The gnome was cradling a cup in his hands, the steam wafting up, carrying the tantalizing aroma of a hot beverage. The gnome seemed completely oblivious to Queen's presence, his attention absorbed by the view and the contents of his cup. Upon seeing the gnome, Queen's initial instinct, a relic of her logical programming, suggested a swift, violent solution. However, she remembered Cyrus's humanistic approach and chose diplomacy instead. As she stepped out from the shadows, she called out, "Good day, sir, I do not mean to startle you." The gnome, caught off guard, spluttered and spilled his hot beverage. He looked up at Cyrus, bewilderment furrowing his brows. "What in the 9 hells is a human child doing on my mountain?" he demanded, his voice gruff, eyes squinting in the bright light. Queen, utilizing Cyrus's body language, raised her hands in a non-threatening gesture. "I mean no harm. I am Cyrus, and I am on a quest to defeat the Wraith Warlord," she explained, her voice steady but gentle. The gnome's eyes widened at the mention of the Wraith, and his grumbling subsided. "Name's Tinkertwist," he introduced himself, rubbing his grizzled chin thoughtfully. "Heard about that Wraith. Nasty business, that. Needs to be stopped for sure. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Sir Tinkertwist." Queen bowed. She could sense Tinkertwist's skepticism as his gaze raked over Cyrus's youthful, slender frame. "A bit young for such a task, ain't you?" Tinkertwist squinted, a dubious look playing on his weathered face. "A Wraith Warlord ain't no easy foe. What makes you think you can defeat him?" Queen responded in a calm, steady voice. "I have been trained, and I carry with me a determination that goes beyond my physical form. I am here because there is no other choice." Tinkertwist grunted, still not entirely convinced, but not dismissing her outright. He took a sip of his beverage, now cooled, and leaned on the railing of his porch, looking out across the vast expanse. "Well, Cyrus," he said, I do have something that could save you an entire month of travel towards that gathering dark army. But it ain't for free. I have a pest problem that anyone with the strength to defeat a Wraith King should be able to handle. Her curiosity piqued, Queen asked. A month? That is quite the claim, Tinker Twist. What is it that you want? The green-tinted gnome pointed towards a nearby peak, where a shadow circled ominously. That, he said, is a wyvern. Been disturbing my peace for a while now. I'd like it gone. Queen found herself in a predicament, having to weigh her options. The prospect of saving time was tempting, but dealing with the wyvern could potentially drain her resources. As she considered her options, she was struck by the realization of how much her perspective had been shaped by her time with Cyrus. The lines between artificial and human seemed to blur, leaving her with a choice that felt undeniably human. To negotiate, cooperate, and perhaps to compromise. She nodded, resolute. I understand. I'll take care of your pest problem. Tinker Twist looked at her, his gaze now tinged with a hint of respect. We'll see, lad, we'll see. His previous standoffish demeanor seemed to soften as he turned his attention to a contraption behind him. I've got a glider here. Built it myself. It can carry you off this mountain, save you weeks of travel. You do the doom on that bird, and I'll show you how to use it. Until then, could I get you a hot beverage? Queen, bathed in the ethereal glow of the white dwarf star, stood at the edge of the mountain peak. Her gaze swept across the vast expanse of fog-covered boglands below, a contemplative stillness surrounding her. The high-altitude wind tousled Cyrus's unkempt hair, its cold fingers brushing across his skin, as she scrutinized the situation at hand. Weighing the circumstances meticulously, like an experienced gambler analyzing the deck, she ran her mind through an exhaustive list of probabilities. An impressive array of outcomes unfurled in her mind, each one quantified and ranked according to its feasibility and potential gain. Her calculations were swift and precise, the advantage of her AI nature at play. Finally, her logical conclusion was that it would be more than worth their time to wait right here, on this remote mountaintop. 2 days of rest, necessary for Cyrus to recover from his prolonged stasis, would be a small price to pay. Then, under her guidance, Cyrus could prepare to face the wyvern. He could learn, grow, and possibly get closer to tapping into the profound power that lay dormant within him. This was quickly becoming a necessity. Cyrus was evidently trailing behind the other pillars in this endeavor. As she pondered, her mind wandered back to the memories of Gwendra. The fallen human's experiences, her dying memories, were now a part of Queen, granting her glimpses of the past. Her consciousness sifted through Gwendra's thoughts, like a scholar poring over ancient texts, seeking useful insights. It was becoming alarmingly evident that the Wraith warlord had already claimed one, perhaps even 2, other pillars of creation. This would make him a formidable adversary, significantly stronger than Cyrus. Queen needed a strategy, a foolproof plan to outwit and defeat the warlord. It was an uphill battle, but if she could pull it off, it would not only ensure their survival, but also catapult her own power to new heights. It would make up for the 6 months she had lost at the start, the time when she was dormant and unaware of the unfolding chaos. Her determination solidified, a steely resolve that left no room for failure. She stood there on the precipice of decision, her gaze fixated on the horizon. A sense of anticipation hung in the air, the calm before a storm. It was not fear, but a recognition of the enormity of the task before them. The next move was Cyrus's, and under her guidance, Queen was certain they would step forward on the correct path. The next 2 days were spent in quiet contemplation, as Cyrus's willpower slowly ticked back into sustainable levels. Queen had to physically remove the grey cloth armor that she wore, something that neither she nor Cyrus had done in a long time. The convenience of having the powers to clean and store their wardrobe could not be understated. The feeling of perfect cleanliness after a phase shift was also very missed in her opinion. In between her quests for personal hygiene, she took a keen interest in Tinker Twist's glider project. As an AI, she was an expert in fluid dynamics, and she was itching to improve his rudimentary design. He turned out to be a secretive little goblin. She smiled at the thought of how he would react to being called a goblin and decided to try it out, after they had the glider, of course. Their playful banter became a daily routine. Queen intentionally misnaming Tinkertwist, each new nickname more outrageous than the last, and taking immense pleasure in his reactions. In the absence of any other activities, Queen turned to tinkering with Tinkertwist's other designs. She caught several flaws, some that would absolutely kill the little gnome, and others that would absolutely cause cataclysmic damage. "How are you still alive, Tinkertwit?" she exclaimed when she saw the design for what he called a gnomish space heater, but turned out to be a portable nuclear fusion reactor. He had brought Cyrus a long, fresh nightshirt to wear so she could clean her rugged battle gear. "Thank you ever so much, Stinkerfist," Queen said with a giggle. The gnome gave her an eye roll. "Ouch, that one hurt. If you weren't helping me so much with these projects, I would thump your wee head. Why are you still here anyway? Ain't you supposed to be killing that bird?" He pointed to the nearest mountain peak as he grumbled. "Maybe tomorrow, Tinklemist," Queen said as she hopped up and went to the other side of the small shack house to change. That night she finished the little creature's design of an energy coil that was well beyond any of the technology that she had seen in both this and Cyrus's own section. Tinkertwist was truly an absolute genius, compared to any other intelligent life forms that she had seen recently. Cyrus finally woke from his stasis 2 days later. He was greeted by a strange sensation, a crisp clarity that came from sharing his body with the AI Queen. She receded to the back of his mind as he regained control, yet her presence remained like an echo, guiding his actions. She filled him in on all that had happened from the moment he created the eternal wildflower until now, and once caught up, he was ready to go wyvern hunting. Rejuvenated and ready, Cyrus gave the gnome a wave goodbye and said, "See you soon, Spankerbutt," before disappearing into a whirling dust. He instantly felt regret and Queen's disappointment in his attempt to play her game. "You are not very good at that," she informed him with a disdain that he could feel. Guiding his powers, she turned on his foresight, ready for a fierce battle, and it was nothing short of brutal, an instant clash of forces that tested the very limits of their abilities. They were now higher than they were, and on a mountain whose jagged peaks threatened fall at any moment. Cyrus and Queen engaged in a dance of death with the wyvern as it streaked through the sky. The wind was a chorus of shrieking gales, the sky an amphitheater punctuated by the flash of the wyvern's scales, shimmering with an ethereal light. Cyrus, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest, moved with an agility and precision that belied the treacherous terrain. Every strike of the wyvern was anticipated, every lethal swoop met with a graceful dodge. His movements, guided by Queen's assistance and amplified by his foresight ability, blended into a ballet of combat. The wyvern's aerial speed was breathtaking, its maneuvers a blur against the night sky, yet Cyrus met each with a calculated counter. The turning point came when he spotted the wyvern's nest cradled between the craggy rocks, 2 luminescent eggs nestled within. The wyvern, driven by instinct, was forced to land to protect its unborn progeny. Cyrus paused, his gaze drawn to the eggs. He activated his nascent energy-reading ability and could discern a palpable female aura emanating from both of them. He took another moment to study the mother wyvern, her energy patterns unraveling before him like a woven tapestry. His ability was in its infancy, yet the information it revealed was illuminating. He could tell the wyvern was young, the energy patterns around her vibrating with the innocence of first-time motherhood. Yet beneath the veneer of youth, he could sense a raging inferno of fury. The protective instinct of the mother wyvern was a primal force, blinding her to any potential negotiation. It was a sobering realization. Regardless of his actions henceforth, she would attempt to kill him. "Cyrus," Queen's voice echoed in his mind. "She's too angry, too protective. She won't let us go, even if we tried." "I know," Cyrus replied, his gaze unwavering from the mother wyvern. "This is her first clutch, Queen. She's scared and she's furious." The dance of death resumed, the mountain peak their stage, the raging winds their music, and the luminescent glow of the wyvern eggs their spotlight. The fight was grueling, but it was a dance they were determined to see through till the end. Cyrus, now a seasoned warrior marked by many battles, had grown used to the visions and sensations that accompanied his unique ability to glimpse into the near future. In the chaos of combat, he had witnessed his own death time and time again. Arrows piercing his flesh, swords cleaving through his body, his head brutally smashed, his form torn asunder by ferocious animals and even devoured by monstrous creatures. These were the haunting glimpses of his possible fates. Yet, as time passed, he had learned to harness this uncanny foresight, and the once disturbing flashes no longer sent tremors of fear down his spine. With each encounter, Cyrus's mastery over his future sight grew, and he found himself seamlessly navigating through the deadly onslaughts of the Wyvern. Its vicious attacks, once formidable and overwhelming, became predictable to his honed senses. Dodging its strikes had become second nature, his movements flowing with a practiced grace. Yet he desired more than survival in this perilous dance. He aimed to unravel the mysteries of a new skill, to study the intricate energies that surged through every clash. Cyrus perceived the vibrant colors that pulsed within the energy field surrounding him and the Wyvern. Each hue held a distinct meaning, a song waiting to be sung. With his ability to read these energy patterns and his enhanced foresight, he not only saw the unfolding events, but also gained insight into the emotions that propelled the Wyvern's every move. The creature's anger blazed with fiery red, its frustration tinged with electric blue, and its anticipation shimmered with a golden aura. This extraordinary dance of colors offered a wealth of knowledge, a glimpse into the Wyvern's essence. As the battle raged on, Cyrus sought to prolong the confrontation, believing that by wearing down the Wyvern, he would have more time to delve into the depths of this energy exchange. He could discern the subtle shifts in the creature's aura, the ebb and flow of its emotions. The Wyvern's rage transformed into exhaustion, its relentless strikes gradually losing their vigor. It was a rare opportunity to observe the nuances of combat, to analyze the Wyvern's patterns and intentions with meticulous attention. Cyrus felt Queen tug at his mind. "That is enough, Cyrus," she said with compassion in her voice. "The beast is exhausted, and you are simply torturing her now." Cyrus looked upon the Wyvern with a cold, emotionless stare and responded, "I can learn more from her. This is no time to be weak-willed, Queen. There is too much at stake." Queen's consciousness surged into the physical form that they shared, and with a cry of, "Enough!" Cyrus plunged his dagger through the skull of the defeated creature, and then she retreated back into his mind. Cyrus was angered by this action, but knew that it would not do any good to have an argument with her about it. The deed was done. He went to examine the eggs that were in the nest, and decided that he would like to spend more time examining the energies within them. Cyrus scooped them up and placed them gently into his dimensional storage. His attention then drew back to the large carcass of the Wyvern, and he had to ask, "Queen, is Wyvern meat edible, and how large is my storage at this point?"